Matt, what's up?
Hey, what's going on? I'm kind of new to the space here. So, are you taking a stance in any particular religion, or are you just taking questions about any religion?
Yeah, I defend Orthodox Christianity. So, but we can debate any challenge to that position from any of the other positions.
Sure. Okay, so Orthodox Christianity, that's interesting. I guess the first question would be, yeah, where exactly does Orthodox Christianity come from? And, who gets to decide what is Orthodox? What is the original meaning of the religion?
Well, I mean the historic churches that were set up under the Roman Empire in the first, second, third century by the apostles, their successors who were at the councils of Nicaea, Constantinople, etc., during the first millennium. So that's what defines, and that's who defines the Orthodox Church. And the Orthodox Church today, the canonical Orthodox Catholic Church, is the same church as that church.
Okay, but I guess my point is, how do we know exactly what they believed in and exactly what they taught all these years later?
Because we can go read them.
Where?
What do you mean where? You can read Ignatius, Clement, Cyprian. You can read Athanasius, Alexander. I mean, these are all pre-Nicene church fathers. What do you mean?
So we're basing our entire belief system on five guys who we have no idea
No, I
exactly who they are.
listed. No, I listed five people who are very famous, known throughout the entire world. It's not people that nobody knows who they are. They're representative bishops of their time. And then I listed the Council of Nicaea, which was all the bishops of the Roman Empire in 325. So these are not nobodies, and they're not people that you can't find. They're not obscure people.
So, but we don't have the original writings of the New Testament. We have copies of copies of copies. So how can we really trust any document from antiquity and from the past? Do we just have to put our faith in it then?
Well, actually, the New Testament documents are more well attested to than any other ancient and historical document. There's over 5,000 copies of the New Testament from the first few centuries of the church.
That may be true. There may be more copies of the New Testament than any other book, but those other books we don't claim to be written or inspired by God. So I guess that's the big difference.
Well, that was just a refutation of your first assertion that it's not well attested to. It is well attested to, better than any other book like Plato or Aristotle or anyone else from antiquity.
Yes, no, I'm saying that that may be true, but if the orthodox stance is that depending on what you believe, it was inspired by God or written by God, or however the Orthodox Church says it, then if that's the case, well, we don't have that original text, and then if God wrote it or
That's
inspired,
true. That's
if
true.
God wrote it or
But that's you're correct in that we do not have what's called autographa. We have later copies of the Gospels and Paul's epistles, but that's not how I would go about arguing whether the religion is true. I would use a more philosophical argument, which is more of a worldview level argument than competing claims about historicity of the text, because the religion is not ultimately even based on the text, because it's the church, the community of the church that produced the text. So the church is even prior to the text.
so does the belief in Jesus being the Son of God, is that even relevant within Christianity today, or is Christianity more just about a lifestyle?
No, that's absolutely fundamental to Christianity.
Okay, but how can we know that he was actually God?
Well, I would use a transcendental argument to prove that the Christian, Orthodox Christian paradigm is the only paradigm that can give an account for knowledge, ethics, and metaphysics.
I'm not sure how you can prove that. I mean, we have no writings from Jesus. Nobody who wrote the New Testament actually knew Jesus at all. I
Well,
mean,
that's assuming that Jesus didn't appoint apostles who are able to write down what Jesus taught. And Jesus did inspire the Old Testament in our view. So that's not even true in terms of the Old Testament. That's all about Jesus as well from our perspective. But the argument I gave is called a transcendental argument, that only the Christian worldview, in terms of its metaphysics, ethics, etc., can give an account for things like reason and logic.
but yeah, possibly. I mean, it depends. There's obviously thousands of different religions that people believe in, and I don't claim to understand all of them because there's so many, and I'm sure they would make the same statements about their own religions.
Yeah, but that's a different thing from actually doing it. So, what is your perspective? What's your worldview?
No, my view is I'm a Christian, but I think that there's a lot of issues, and I think there's a lot of things that people just need to be honest about in terms of the text and what it really means in terms of how it relates to us all these years later, 2,000 years later.
Well, how could you be a Christian if you don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God, or that's a necessary belief? Because that's always been a necessary position for
No,
Christianity.
I didn't state one way or the other what I believe. I was just basically stating a point, because I think a lot of people consider themselves cultural Christians now, where they don't necessarily believe that, but they claim
Yeah.
Christianity. Eh,
But it sounds like the way you were arguing was as a cultural Christian or as an atheist. So I'm confused about your
No,
position.
I'm just interested. I'm just interested to get your perspective and to create
So you
dialogue.
won't say your position.
What's that?
You won't say your position.
No, I'm not going to say a position. I just just
Why?
like to just like to ask questions and see what people's thoughts are, because it is such
Okay.
an interesting topic.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. How would you give an account for logic and reasoning?
An account for logic and reasoning in terms of what? A specific topic?
What is logic and what is the faculty of reasoning, and how do we have it, and how does it work, and how do you know that?
Logic would be something that I could prove using my brain, deductive reasoning, maybe math, science, the environment. Reasoning is the ability to dissect certain information and create a specific outcome. Uh,
Well, how does using logic prove it? So we use all kinds of things that aren't necessarily the case. I mean, I might utilize, unicorns in my narrative story about fiction realms. That doesn't prove that unicorns exist. So, why does using a thing mean that it's the case or that it's true?
no, I just if you're trying to get at the point of using logic, are you trying to say how do we use logic to prove what we're talking about is true or false?
Well, earlier I made the argument that only Christianity can give an account for those types of things. And you said, well, I'm not sure about that. So I'm illustrating how I would go about making that argument by asking you what your account is in your worldview for logic as a thing itself. And then I'm going to contrast it with my perspective and my account of how logic works.
Well, quite frankly, I don't think there's anything logical about the story. I don't think there's anything logical that really makes sense.
Well, that's fine, but I'm making a different argument, which was about the categories themselves and how we account for them. So, for example, if Jesus is the universal principle of reason or logos himself, that's a way to give an account for universals and logic. And I'm asking you, if you're going to use logic to argue against Christianity that it's not logical, what is your account for logic then?
Well, I think that that's an assumption to say that he is logos or logic. Um,
Well, now wait a minute. The revelation which you don't accept, even though you said you're a Christian, calls him that in John 1, right?
yes, again, but there are many issues, obviously, with the New
Okay, so
Testament
fine.
text.
So maybe it's all false. Maybe all the gospels are false. How does that help you to give an account for reason and logic?
Well, my reasoning and logic tells me that out of all the people who have ever lived on the planet,
So you're just appealing to the thing I asked you to give a justification for. I asked you how logic is the case and how you know that, and you're just saying, "Well, I use logic." Yeah, but I'm asking you for an account for that.
no, the logic is it would be coming from a historical perspective. So from a historical perspective, um, then you must say then that the miracle of him being born to a virgin and resurrecting from the
So you're
dead.
not even listening. I'm asking you about logic itself, and you keep diverting away from that and restating an argument based on logic. I want to know in your worldview how there's such a thing as logic and how it works if you're an agnostic or whatever you are.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure proving what the definition of logic is has anything to do with the
Are
real.
you using logic to argue against Christianity?
I'm using logical statements that you must use in
Correct.
order to.
So those rely on logic. And how does logic work?
Well, logic works by using your brain, I would say.
And so again, you're restating the thing that was already disproven a minute ago. Using a thing or saying that it's in your brain doesn't make it justified and doesn't show how it works. How is that universal?
Well,
Is it just your brain? What about is it in my brain too?
no, but it's like how do you know anything is real in the world? You use your brain.
How do you know? So your answer is a two-quote way to ask me how I know anything is real when I ask you for an account for logic and universal categories.
I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. Then, if
How do you give an account for logic and its universal, immaterial, invariant nature?
what does that mean? You're using a lot of big words. What does that mean? I'm giving you how.
These are standard. They're standard philosophical terms. You wanted to use logic to argue against Christianity, and I'm saying, okay, fine, maybe Christianity is false. I want you now to give me an account for the thing that you're relying on and using, namely logic.
Because the claims of the New Testament and the claims of the Bible
Yeah.
are.
Again, this is. I already could. Let's say I concede to you that the Bible's false. How does that give an account for the ontological status of logic?
No, but I'm using logic, and I'm getting to my point, which is that they.
Which is a circle because I'm asking you how you know logic works in the world. What's your justification for logic? You're using a thing that you have no justification for.
No,
But
because
wait
we
a
live
minute.
in the world.
That was your, hold on. That was your original critique of me. Your original
No,
critique
I have no
was
critique of
you're
you.
relying on a
No, I
thing
never
that
critiqued you.
you're, yes, you did. You said we're relying on a book that we can't know
Yeah,
and
but
that
that's not a
the
critique
miracles
on
are
you. You
irrational.
didn't write it. It's not a critique on you.
It's a critique of my position. Stop playing word games. I'm asking you to justify your use of logic because that's what you're relying on to refute Christianity. So you're in a terrible position.
No, not really. Because
Okay, so why should we believe logic? How is it? What is it? Where is
well,
it?
logic is what you live every day, and so, for instance, there.
You don't see how dumb that is. It's just what you live. Okay, I live as a degenerate. Is that
No,
logic?
no, no. There's certain laws of physics, right? For instance, there's not one person on this planet.
So the laws of logic are the laws of physics.
In a way, you use logic.
Okay, can you observe? Can you observe a law of logic under a microscope?
No, but you use logic in order to figure out what the laws of physics are.
Using things doesn't tell me that it's true or that it should be used. I gave the example earlier of a unicorn in a story. That doesn't tell me unicorns are true.
No, but for instance, there's not one person on this planet who can walk on in a pool of lukewarm water, right? But in the Bible, they make the claim that Jesus walked on water. So that's an extraordinary event.
Yeah, but I already conceded. Yeah, but I conceded to you. Let's say that the Bible is false. That's fine. And so it's all true. It's all made up stories. How does that work for you to give an account for logic, the very thing that you're using?
I don't know that I have to make that connection.
Oh, so you don't have to give an account for the things that you rely on, but I do. So
No,
that's
no,
a
I,
double
no, but
standard. That's another
no,
fallacy.
I'm not relying on anything but logic and reasoning.
And you don't have to give an
No,
account
no,
for
no,
that.
I am because.
No, you're not. You just keep stating that it's the case and that you use it. That's not giving an account for it or explaining how it is or where it is or what it is.
Yeah, but your stance is that you're believing every word of that book as if it is the
And you
gospel.
want me to accept you want me to accept an immaterial, invariant, unchanging, unseeable thing that you can't give an account for. You just say it just is. Now imagine if I came to this debate and I said, God just is. You would laugh at that. That's literally what you're doing with the thing that you're using to try to argue against God's existence.
No, that's not what I'm doing, and I'm not arguing against God's existence.
It's not what you're
I'm
doing. What you literally said about 10 times that logic is just what it is and it's what we do with our brain. It just is.
no, I mean, my argument is that it's a book full of mistakes, contradictions. It's not inerrant.
How does that tell you what? Can you not repeat? You don't even understand what my argument is. You couldn't. Could you restate my argument?
You're all over the place. I don't know exactly. I don't know
No, I'm
exactly.
not all over the place. I'm very precise for the last 20 minutes. Exactly what my argument is. How am I all over the place when I've asked you like 20 times to give a
Well,
justification for what logic is or how you use it?
you're asking me to use logic and reasoning, and I'm using logical examples of why there might be
No,
problems.
no. I'm
Well,
asking
yes.
you a higher order question. I'm asking you what it is, not do you use it. What is it?
What does what your definition of logic have anything
What
to do
what
with
what?
what we're talking about?
I'm
You're
asking
trying
you
to
your
confuse
definition. That's
everybody
what.
in here with your big
No,
words that you
everyone
got
in
out
here
of a
is laughing at
dictionary.
you. They're laughing at you because you can't give an account for the thing that you're using.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. No, you're not
No, they
actually
are. I
giving.
assure you. I assure you. And then when it goes on YouTube, everyone's going to be laughing too. So I assure you that you will be laughed at.
No, I don't actually think that because you haven't given me one
I don't care
strong
because
explanation for why
you
you
can't
believe it's
even
true.
restate what. Can you restate? Can you restate what my argument even
You
is?
can restate it. You
What?
can restate it if you'd like.
I've done it about 10 times, and I want to see if you're able to do it.
You're not giving an argument at all.
All right, that's too stupid.
No, you're not even giving an argument for why.
That's the dumbest argument. I gave him multiple arguments in critique. That was so stupid. I guess we'll go to you, man. But I don't really tend to like to debate people that are debating in bad faith. It's just kind of feels fake. Well, how would it be in good faith?
Well,
I
how
mean,
is it? What do you mean? How is
would
it
you
in
say
good
you're?
faith?
Would you?
I was an atheist
You
for
can't be too.
25 years, and then I understood uh, the Catholic Church. So I can argue from both positions because I argued as an atheist for 25 years.
It's not in good faith if you no longer believe atheism.
What do you? We can debate what good faith means. I can still present every argument I ever presented.
Yeah, but you don't
What
believe
does it
that
have to do?
anymore,
What
so
does
it's
it have to
not
do
in
with the
good faith.
debate? That's not what debates.
Okay, you're not a
No, you're
serious
not a serious
person.
person. You're a faggot. You're a loser. You're afraid.
Right.
You're afraid to
I'm afraid
debate.
of you.
Well, come on, have at it. Let's go. Show me how I'm wrong. Ruin
Yeah.
me.
Okay,
Go.
go. Well, you choose the position since you're not in
I'll
bad
choose
faith.
atheism
Okay. Why is atheism true?
because you have no evidence.
What is the basis for believing in evidence? What does that mean?
Evidence is how we come to understand truth.
And how do you know that from an epistemic standpoint?
Well, it's just it's natural to a human person to be exposed to
So it just
information,
is.
and you process the information, and you say, well, I don't know, and then you repeat the process, and you come to learn. So I would argue from, I guess we'll call it a empirical basis of understanding knowledge.
Okay. Do you have universal empirical experience?
Universal, which is to say that I have the experience of all life.
No, in a in logic, universal claims are anything that's preceded by what's called a quantifier, which would be all, every, etc. So if all knowledge comes from sense data,
Mm.
is that proposition itself found in sense data?
Yeah.
The proposition itself is found in sense data. Where do you find the truth of a proposition in sense data?
Within itself.
So that's a
Well,
circle.
that's
So
what
it's just
thinking is.
self-referencing.
Thinking is a circle. I think, therefore, I am. You just kind of loop it around. I mean, you can't. If there was a way to
So you
understand
can commit.
everything,
So you can. So you can commit fallacies in logic and debate, circular arguments.
I try not to, but I'm certainly fallible.
Well, you just made a circular argument, so can I commit those as well or not?
Sure.
Okay, so you can commit fallacies in
Well,
debates.
no, you shouldn't. I'm just saying that
You just said you
if you
can't.
want to try to do that, and if I want to try to pick at it and try to pry it apart and show you where I'm wrong, that's what the fun of a debate is. But this belief that, oh, I got the right way of knowing things. Well, you don't,
Bro,
because
you don't
we wouldn't
even
be
you don't
arguing
even
things,
know.
right?
You have no clue. You don't even know what you're arguing or what the debate is. Like that debate already happened and you already missed
Oh,
it.
is that what it is?
You argued that fallacies can be done in a
No, that's not what I
debate
said
because
at
you made
all.
a
No, you're
circular argument.
twisting my words. You
You
said,
made a
"Can
circular
I?"
argument
Meaning you, like, would I allow you to do
in a
so? And I said,
debate.
yes. You are permitted to
No,
do so.
I mean, can you violate the laws of logic is what I'm asking because a circular argument does
No,
that.
you cannot violate the laws of logic.
Okay, then why did you make a circular argument that knowledge just is what it is? Meaning just is what it is.
That's not a flaw.
It's a circular argument. You already said it was a circle, and that
That's
is
not
a
a
fallacy.
flaw.
It's a
Why?
fallacy called circular argumentation.
How?
Oh my
Come
gosh. This is why you're not a good faith debater, and
No,
you're not able to
the
do this.
reality is that nobody can have a complete and total understanding of absolute truth.
That's not what the claim is. I didn't ask you about a
The
complete
point
understanding. I asked if you
I'm
had
making is that you have to approach all knowledge
Did you
from a
make a
limited
circular argument?
posture, right? A limited
Did you make a circular argument? You said it was a circle. You said it was self-referencing earlier. You said Descartes, right?
yeah.
Okay, so you made a circular argument, and that is a
You're getting
you don't
hung
think
up
those are
on
fallacies?
nonsense.
It
You're
let's
not
go.
actually
So
debating
debates.
anything. You're debating the nature of debate.
I'm pointing out the fallacy of where you lost
No,
the debate by
you want to
using
sit
a
there
circular
and
argument.
jerk off over terms because you went to school and you learned what all these words mean, but that has nothing to
Okay,
do
yeah, so
with
you lost
truth
the
or
debate
knowledge or
already. You
understanding.
lost the debate. So yeah, so you already lost the debate
Okay,
because you
well,
said
that's
you
what you
could use
say. Like, let's see
fallacies.
some hands. Does anybody think that it's over?
Dude, nobody in you're going to be laughed at. The entire chat is
Well,
going to
let them
laugh at you.
laugh at me. I'll
Good,
keep going.
because you said that fallacies don't matter, so
It's
you
not what
lost
I
the debate.
said. Again, so
You
you're
did.
not
You said
arguing in
that
good
it
faith.
doesn't matter what terms and what fancy words I
No,
use because fallacies are
no.
not
See,
fancy
you are
words.
a bad faith debater because you take something I said.
Is what a liar. Anura. Literally everybody's telling that guy down. What a complete clown. You, Anura.
So, are we still discussing existence of God or not?
Sure.
So, well, so because you do not have the whole experience of universe, um, how can you even make a claim that because you couldn't find the evidence, then there is no evidence? Because you are lazy
Are you
doesn't
referring
make
to the argument I just made?
yeah. Why you are making your laziness a burden on
Oh my
God?
gosh. You don't even understand the argument. Are you referring to what I said to the previous guy?
Yeah, sort of, because that's from where I joined the debate. Would you like to explain it further?
Right. So he made a universal claim that all knowledge comes from sense data. And I'm saying that there's two ways, two levels to refute that. One is that the proposition itself is not found in sense data. And also, as an empiricist, he doesn't have access to universal knowledge, which the word all quantifies. So it's a self refuting statement on two levels.
So, okay. So, what is your stand on God? Because you cannot find the empirical evidence of it, you believe it doesn't exist. Is
Yeah,
that
but you don't believe in empirical evidence for truth or the claims either, based on what I just argued to you about empirical truth claims themselves. Can you show me the empirical evidence for the past, for the self, for time, for meaning, for mathematics, for universal propositions, categories, logic? Can you show me that, please? Where are those under the microscope?
oh well, you want it under the microscope. What if
You
I
said
say, okay,
empirical.
wait. If what if it is not material? Then how would you find it empirically?
Oh my gosh. See, you don't even understand the
No, you
argument,
don't
man.
understand. Just tell
Yeah,
me
I
if
don't
something is
understand.
not material.
I reiterated this for you. Okay, let's do this. Can you restate what my argument is? Restate the hypothetical. Can you restate the hypothetical?
No, I cannot, because it
No,
is a
you
word
can't.
salad. It's a word salad.
Oh,
You are
word
hiding
salad.
behind the word.
Basic terms and logic like quantifier and empirical claims
I'm
are.
asking you a
You think
simple
that you?
question. You are
No,
talking
you're
about
not.
quantifying.
No, you're not. You asked an
If something
epistemic
is not
question.
material, how would you quantify it? How many
You
kilos
asked
of
an.
God you want?
You think epistemology is a word salad because you're an uneducated,
Maybe,
ignorant
maybe, but
goofus. That's why.
so because you are educated, explain me as
Yeah. So
I'm a
can you
5-year-old.
restate a hypothetical that I made? What's the hypothetical?
I'm asking a simple question, that what if it is not material? What
I answered your question by pointing out that you yourself believe in multiple things that are not material, and so therefore everything that we believe in or that we know is therefore not reducible to materialism. It disproves reductionism, but you don't even understand the argument.
No, you are just assassinating me rather than
Oh my gosh.
making any valid
You're too stupid to have
statement.
this conversation.
Just tell me, okay, just prove.
You can't even,
No,
you don't even know what's happening. Like, this is crazy level stuff. It's like talking to a child in all these cases. It's pretty wild. And you think I'm being mean, and it's like, no. I've restated it politely for that guy about 4 times. And you understand, atheists and these arrogant people, they need to have their position destroyed. I mean, unmute, dude. Why are you raising your hands? I, for the life of me, cannot understand why people can't work this thing.
When I got invited in, it was lagged behind the live stream, so I couldn't hear what you said.
It's all good.
Yeah, so I feel like there's a slight misinterpretation when people make scientific claims. When a person says something is scientifically proven to be true, because it's framed with the scientific method and science in general, in that philosophical sense, that no matter how true somebody says something is scientifically, it's all framed within it could be wrong. Whether the certainty level is 99.9 whatever percent or whatever, it's never 100%, because just inherently it has to possibly be wrong. So that way it could be also testable. And, you have 2 people, let's say they have amnesia, they wake up on an island, 2 separate but identical islands. One is very religious minded, the other one is more scientifically minded. And the person's like, well, they're trying to figure out how the world works. And you see them, they're testing things without even realizing it, I think this animal went behind this bush. Oh wait, they're not behind that bush. That means I could be wrong. That means maybe I could be wrong about anything. And versus the person who goes and says, hey, the animal went behind the bush and they're not there anymore. And I heard a voice in my head, and therefore, that might be some other being that I can't access other than through my own head, may exist, and it may have controlled where the animal was. And it just seems as though there's more jump to conclusions with the religious minded person, versus the more tightly knit set of assumptions that are based on this more intellectually humble, I could be wrong at all times, because I'm always using evidence that
Right,
could possibly be wrong.
But what you're saying is missing the point about the things that I was arguing for in terms of preconditions or transcendental
Like
categories.
what?
The reason that those things can't be wrong in any sense is because if they're wrong, knowledge isn't possible and science isn't
But how is
possible, because
revelation
they're
not just another form of knowledge that is based on a jump to conclusion?
because of everything that I argued to that guy. What I'm arguing is that revelation is the ground for the transcendental categories, which are the ground for empirical
So it
science.
starts from a jump to conclusion.
No, it's not a jump. It's arguing that if you make a sentence, you're assuming transcendental categories, and God is the only type of being that could ground transcendental categories.
But let's say you hear a voice in your head and you believe it's God. There's a jump to conclusion. There's other possibilities,
Well,
which means that if a person were to jump to that,
I'm not arguing for hearing voices. I'm arguing for a specific historic religion, Orthodox Christianity, and its version of theism, which is not just one guy
but
hearing a voice in his
that
head. It's an entire metaphysics.
take any religion, and the entire thing is going to be based on, yeah, sure, maybe historical accounts with whatever level of accuracy there is. But in every one of those counts, just like in the scientific method, there are many other plausible, possibilities, not necessarily within the whole framework of that belief system, but just at any one point, something might have another explanation that we just don't know.
That's why we're going to philosophy and to the things that are preconditions for all knowledge or any possible knowledge. That's why we're going to that,
right,
to exclude what you're saying right here.
Which is, both people on the island are starting at the same place, but what do they start? What is the base and core of how they're framing everything else?
I'm not trying to be rude. I don't think you're understanding. I'm making a specific transcendental argument. The argument itself addresses and bypasses the challenge that you're giving, because it's not understanding what the argument is. The argument is prior to empirical sense data claims.
Mm-hmm. So can you give me an example like between the two?
Right. So other categories that are necessary for any possible knowledge would again be things like the external world, the self, the mind, logic, universals, mathematics, time, etc. None of those things are in sense data. They're preconditions for the possibility of knowledge, and so they're prior to empirical claims.
Well, I mean, like when you first start off on that island, the hypothetical island, it's already the case that, yeah, of course you have to set up some kind of framework. Like, and if you're starting from one that says, yeah, I'm going to create this framework, but it's fallible, then that's the main difference.
You don't understand the argument. This is not you're not understanding. I'm trying to explain it, but you're not getting it.